If you saw The Shining, you may know how terrified that movie may have made you feel. And interestingly, it's not even extremely gory or violent. So we're gonna break down why The Shining is so psychologically chilling. Now, let's get started.
What about Tony? He's looking forward to the hotel, I bet.
The 1980 movie The Shining creates a grounded and believable real-world situation.
Now, come on, Tony. Don't be silly.
I don't want to call them Mrs. Torrance.
The characters aren't glamorized, the family isn't wealthy, and Jack's big dream of becoming a successful writer feels painfully real. Taking the off-season caretaker job at the Overlook Hotel was, in his mind, the perfect opportunity to write his novel and turn his life around.
I'm a writer. Teaching's been more or less a way of making ends meet.
Psychologically, this setup makes Jack's descent into madness feel more authentic and unsettling because it's rooted in a very real human struggle for purpose, success, and control. Although Jack clearly had a creepy quality to him from the start.
You can rest assured, Mr. Ullman, that's not gonna happen with me.
It's okay. I saw it on the television.
The hotel is large with a maze of hallways and spacious main rooms, making the three of them appear extremely alone. The Overlook Hotel was actually based on the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, where after Stephen King stayed in room 217 and having a nightmare of his son being chased down the halls of the hotel by a fire hose, he came up with the book The Shining, which was turned into the Stanley Kubrick directed movie.
I have a real problem with The Shining, and Stanley Kubrick knew that I had a problem with The Shining. Ghosts may survive, and that may be hell. And that was sort of where I was coming from with The Shining. So the images are striking, but to me that's surface, it's not substance. So I used to describe The Shining, the film, as something like a beautiful car that had no engine in it.
But do you know where the title, The Shining, came from? It actually came from a line in John Lennon's song, Instant Karma.
Yeah, we all shine on.
Stephen King liked the idea of certain people having a psychic ability to shine.
My grandmother and I could hold conversations entirely without ever opening our mouths. She called it shining.
Capable of seeing things that others can't. We naturally have a fear of being alone. Psychologically, this is due to how isolation removes our sense of safety, stability, and emotional grounding. And that fear is amplified while watching this movie while knowing that the hotel is likely haunted.
Are you scared of this place? Is there something bad here?
You know, Doc, when something happens, it can leave a trace of itself behind.
Also, while watching The Shining, feeling alone is amplified further, knowing that it's only the three of them in the hotel. So they must rely on each other because any external help is over 25 miles away on an impassable snow-covered road.
Gets an average of 20 feet of snow.
Barely carved on the side of the mountain. Also, any form of communication to the outside world is unreliable at best.
But our telephones don't seem to be doing too well. Are the lines down?
However, when Jack the husband, who would naturally be considered the main physical protector of his family, turns on his family, it shatters our deepest psychological sense of safety.
I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash.
Transforming the most familiar source of protection into the source of danger, which is one of the most primal and disturbing fears we can experience. But why? This is because it's the betrayal of trust, especially in that situation where they all need to trust each other due to being so alone. This is also why many states have laws that punish familial homicide more severely.
And the defendant was in a position of trust with respect to the victim.
Because the betrayal of trust and the violation of a safe space intensify the psychological and emotional impact on the victim and society as a whole. Psychologically, seeing Jack violate his family's trust taps into our own deep-rooted fear of attachment betrayal. This kind of role betrayal triggers intense emotional discomfort because it goes against everything we're wired to believe about our own safety, love, and protection within our close relationships, where those we trust to protect us will protect us and not drastically turn against us.
Good morning, Jack. Hope you haven't been waiting too long.
There are some theories of what some curious moments in The Shining mean, specifically this part. And if you caught on to that theory of what Jack may have been doing to Danny, it adds an additional violation of trust.
You would never hurt Mom or me, would you?
Therefore, it seems that the director Stanley Kubrick was attempting to amplify the unsettling feeling of trust being completely violated. When you watch The Shining, you may feel a lingering sense of unease, because it forces you to confront the disturbing possibility that even people you rely on most could become unpredictable and dangerous.
Look back, Danny, look back. Scared.
Danny!
Look back, Danny. Start to slow down. See the door. Look at the cupboard. Quickly. Get in the cupboard. Fast as you can.
Danny Lloyd, the child actor who played Danny Torrance, had a very curious, unfazed look on his face through the first half of The Shining. As if he knows something no one else does, or has already seen too many haunting images to react like a typical fearful child would, which may have caused you to have an unsettling feeling. But do you know how they achieved that unfazed look on his face while also protecting him from being exposed to movie violence?
Mom!
They basically lied through admission to him, never telling him he was acting in a horror movie, but simply telling him they were just filming a movie about a family staying in an empty hotel. And if you notice, we never saw Danny in the same frame as any of the gruesome scenes. They showed his supposed reaction seeing certain things, but those were filmed separately and out of context, where the director would ask Danny to make certain faces. Then Danny never knew how those faces he was making would be included into the movie.
Red rum.
Even with Danny saying red rum, it worked out well because Danny never said the word murder.
Red rum!
And it was only until Wendy saw it written through the mirror was it clear to the viewers what Danny was warning.
Red rum!
However, what about this scene?
You did this to him, didn't you? You son of a bitch!
How do you think they didn't let Danny hear what was being said, which would have given away the sinister nature of the movie? Can you guess? At this point in this scene, that's not Danny. Danny was swapped out with a small mannequin child, which is why you may notice the legs and arms are limp and not holding on to Wendy as she carries him off. Now, why do you think they had Danny riding his big wheel bike through the empty halls of the Overlook Hotel? Yes, it psychologically does many things to you. First, the Steadicam that was used at Danny's level makes these moments feel more relatable, where it's as if you're right there with him, feeling small, vulnerable, and completely immersed in his isolated world. Second, showing those moments continuously early on reminds and reinforces the idea to you that the hotel is completely empty. Imagine what The Shining would have felt like if those scenes of Danny riding his big wheel bike through the hotel didn't exist. The loneliness wouldn't sink in as deeply, and you wouldn't feel the slow buildup of isolation that makes Danny's perspective so haunting. Third, the way Danny turns corners and enters hallways that don't logically connect reveal how the hotel's layout doesn't actually make any sense. This is called geographical impossibility, and it's subconsciously psychologically terrifying because your brain is trying to make sense of the space but can't. Creating a subtle feeling of disorientation and unease, as if the hotel itself is bending reality in a way that traps in both Danny and you. And with the Steadicam at his level behind him, Danny's experience feels extremely personal to you, which is one of the reasons why this classic moment of The Shining hits the viewer so hard. And it's also because of the tense music when he finally sees the twins. If you recall, earlier in The Shining, Kubrick taunted us showing moments of Danny seeing those creepy twins. Therefore, when Danny was riding his big wheel continuously throughout the hotel and nothing happened, the suspense kept building exponentially because we all had an idea that those creepy twins were going to appear to Danny again. Or something terrifying was going to be just around the corner, but we were in suspense with anticipatory anxiety of when that was going to happen. And did you notice that after Danny saw the twins along with that gruesome flashback in the hallway,
I'm scared.
he was never shown riding his big wheel again in the movie? Back to geographical impossibility. It's something that Stanley Kubrick uses constantly throughout The Shining. Many of the rooms overlap, and there's several doors and windows that logically lead to nothing, which results in us always having difficulty understanding where they are within the hotel. For example, how is it possible that there is a window looking outside in this office? How do these rooms on the right side of this hallway here exist? Those rooms would be no more than 3 feet deep, with no windows. And the hotel shown from the outside is completely inconsistent with what we see on the inside. For example, their staff suite has windows on the side and a back bathroom window indicating they have a corner unit in the hotel. But when Wendy pushes Danny through their bathroom window to safety, they clearly don't have a corner unit in the hotel. Typically, when movie directors are creating a film set, they're constantly thinking of spatial continuity, making sure that the geography of the environment makes logical sense, so it appears realistic and so you can stay grounded in space while watching the movie. However, Kubrick seemed to have intentionally broke spatial continuity in The Shining to keep you psychologically off balance, disorienting you just enough that the hotel itself starts to feel dreamlike, impossible, and quietly threatening, where its impossible architecture becomes part of the horror. Psychologically, we become fearful of anything we can't understand or predict. When physical space begins to defy logic, it signals to our brain that something is deeply wrong, making us feel unsafe without us fully knowing why. And when the creepy twins eventually appear around the corner, it confirms in your mind that any horror can be lurking just around the corner. Did you notice Kubrick uses suspenseful music not only when there is a suspenseful moment? Right, he also uses it when there's nothing suspenseful at all. Do you know why? He does that intentionally to decondition your brain from thinking that suspenseful music always means danger, which you have been conditioned from watching prior horror movies. By playing suspenseful music even when there's nothing specifically suspenseful, it makes you unable to predict the next scare. Therefore, that unpredictability blurs the line between safety and threat, which also psychologically mirrors what the characters are going through inside the Overlook Hotel, where at any point something disturbing, paranormal, or violent could happen. In the beginning of The Shining, the Dies Irae melody was playing. It's old funeral music which Kubrick appeared to have chosen to suggest impending death and doom are already in motion. The music in The Shining doesn't guide your emotions the way most soundtracks do, but disrupts them. Atonal screeches, long silences, and jarring cues keep your nervous system on high alert. Our brains crave rhythm, predictability, and resolution in music. When it doesn't come, it creates emotional stress. And in The Shining, some of the most terrifying moments are nearly completely silent, which builds tension.
Anybody here?
What do you think of the carpet pattern through most of the hotel's halls? Yes, it feels creepy, but why? Bold geometric design creates a disorienting visual effect that subtly throws off your sense of space and stability. Psychologically, our brains are drawn to patterns, but when a pattern is too rigid or unnatural, as it is here, it starts to feel unsettling to us. Typically, horror movies are dimly lit. However, The Shining flips that on its head. Many scenes are brightly lit, which ironically makes the horror feel even more disturbing. But why? Psychologically, we associate darkness with danger and daylight with safety. So when something horrifying happens in broad daylight or a well-lit room, it violates that expectation, making that moment more jarring and disorienting. You feel exposed, vulnerable, like there's nowhere to hide, and that forces your brain throughout the movie to stay on edge, even when it looks like everything should be okay. Kubrick clearly knew the anticipation of fear is often more terrifying than actually seeing the ghost, monster, or villain commit the horrible act. Psychologically, this taps into what's called anticipatory anxiety, the stress we feel when we know something might go wrong, but we don't know when or how. This fear tactic was famously used in the 1975 film Jaws, where the anticipation of seeing the shark was far scarier than the few moments where it actually appeared on screen at the end. And in The Shining, do you remember seeing Jack physically harm his family at all? Right, there's suspected physical harm involving his son Danny, and Jack threatens Wendy.
I'm just gonna bash.
But he's not really shown physically harming either of them. In fact, it's Jack who's shown to be physically harmed more. Wendy strikes him with a baseball bat, he tumbles down the stairs, and she slices at his hand when he tries to break into the bathroom with his axe. It's more psychologically terrifying when violence is not shown, but our brains fill in the blanks with the worst possible outcomes, fueled by fear and imagination. In The Shining, the expectation that Jack will harm his family builds constant dread, keeping you in a heightened state of anxiety without the relief of payoff. This suspense taps into our primal fear of unpredictability, where the threat feels more real because it never fully materializes, allowing it to linger in our minds long after the scene ends.
It turns me into a freaking monster.
Jack Nicholson played the role of Jack Torrance incredibly well.
It's really nice up here, isn't it?
I love it. You're distracting me.
His descent into madness wasn't sudden, but it unraveled slowly and disturbingly.
It's the most horrible dream I ever had. I must be losing my mind.
You have some very definite ideas about what should be done with Danny, and I'd like to know what they are.
Come on!
Ryan, are you ready? Well, when's the shutting? Shutting.
Die. Axe murder kill.
You just say turn over when you're ready.
Throughout The Shining, you can see him slowly becoming more angry, unhinged, and evil, while knowing there's no stopping Jack from slipping completely down that foreshadowed path.
During the winter, he must have suffered some kind of a complete mental breakdown. He killed his family with an axe.
This scene where Wendy found that Jack wrote that same stupid little saying over and over is brilliantly revealing because it made you think about all those earlier scenes where Jack was typing away. And suddenly you realize he wasn't writing a novel at all.
Maybe you'll let me read something then.
Then take me time to get back to where I was.
He was stuck in an obsessive loop that whole time, and that little plot twist recontextualizes everything you've seen up to that point. It's a turning point that shows just how far gone Jack really is, and it's chilling because up to that point, Wendy and the viewers were completely unaware of how deep his mental breakdown had gone from apparently so early on in their stay at the hotel.
Little pigs, let me come in.
In this famous scene, Jack has regressed into a sadistic, almost cartoonish version of a killer.
Not by the hair on your chinny chin chin.
Mocking the innocence of a child's story as he violently threatens his family.
Then I'll huff and I'll puff.
Psychologically, this signals a full-blown break from reality, which is a key hallmark of psychosis.
And I'll blow your house in.
Signaling how far Jack has descended into madness.
Here's Johnny.
That scene is also used to signal to you that Jack has no mercy or boundaries left. He's not just trying to get inside the bathroom and do what he's possessed to do, but he's joyfully psychologically taunting his prey and relishing in the fear he's causing them. This kind of sadistic role-playing shows how he was fully consumed by the Overlook Hotel's influence. And keep in mind, Jack had no idea that Danny escaped through that bathroom window sliding down the snowbank. He was gleefully and cruelly reciting that nursery rhyme story, fully believing his son was in that bathroom too.
Little pigs, let me come in.
Imagine a father joyfully mocking their child's bedtime story as they attempt to chop down the door with an axe to apparently red rum them both. Although Kubrick never really showed Jack harm his family, they show Jack strike Chef Halloran with his axe. Do you know why? It appears for the story Kubrick needed to prove to the viewers that Jack has no hesitation to red rum, because before that point, it could be debated whether Jack would actually harm anyone. And that moment happening right before Jack chases his son through the hedge maze with his axe seems to prove to us that Jack always had the most sinister intentions with that axe.
Danny boy!
The end maze scene is psychologically terrifying because it taps into our primal fear of being hunted down by something bigger, faster, and more dangerous, because we've all had nightmares of something similar, where it feels like we can only run in slow motion in our dream. The low Steadicam used again behind Danny makes us feel like we're right there with him. Small, breathless, and trying to outrun and outthink a bigger, relentless monster. This immersive perspective here heightens the panic, making the fear feel more personal and inescapable, with Danny constantly looking back and making us feel like Jack with his axe is right behind us. Where if Danny makes just one misstep, it's all over for us too. And of course, with Danny's odd talking finger named Tony.
Don't want to. Please. No.
Is it just an imaginary friend, or a coping mechanism, or something paranormal trying to communicate through him? Typically, a child may do this as a form of imaginative play, or as a coping mechanism in response to stress, loneliness, or trauma.
I guess Danny started talking to Tony about the time we put him in nursery school.
Possibly as a result of what his father was doing to him.
Used too much strength and he injured
Danny's arm.
But as the film progresses, Tony seems to possess knowledge and foresight far beyond what Danny could normally know.
Maybe it was about Danny.
Thus causing us to believe that there's at least a partial paranormal component to his odd behavior.
Red rum! Red rum! Red rum!
Stanley Kubrick was known as a relentless perfectionist on set. If a line or movement wasn't delivered exactly the way he envisioned it, he would demand take after take, sometimes dozens or even over 100, just to capture the perfect moment.
Shelley, I'm telling you, it's too many times. Every time he speaks emphatically, you're jumping, and it looks funny.
This approach caused immense psychological and emotional stress for the cast, especially Shelley Duvall, who played Wendy.
I was really in and out of ill health because the stress of the role was so great.
And Scatman Crothers, who played Chef Halloran. Crothers reportedly broke down crying after being forced to repeat the scene explaining The Shining.
Some places are like people. Some shine and some don't.
148 times, which is actually the world record for the number of takes of a single scene in a movie. Shelley Duvall was also pushed to her breaking point, especially during the infamous staircase scene, which they shot 127 times, making it one of the most grueling scenes ever filmed. And Jack Nicholson had to act through 60 doors filming those scenes. The relentless repetition mirrored the mental unraveling Wendy's character was experiencing on screen.
As soon as possible! As soon as possible!
Kubrick's demanding style remains controversial, but some argue it's part of what made The Shining so haunting. It's because the fear, exhaustion, and tension you see on screen were often painfully real.
Even said roll video.
There's no desperation. Oh, come on. What do you mean roll
2
video?
seconds.
We're killing ourselves out here, and you've got to be ready.
I am too. I'm standing
Should we
right
play
by
mood
the
music?
door. If it hadn't been for that, volley of ideas and sometimes butting of heads together, it wouldn't have come out as good as it did.
Now in the comments, what do you think makes a Shining movie most terrifying? Let everyone know in the comments below. Subscribe for more. And if you want exclusive content and channel perks, you can hit that join button below, because your support makes all of this possible. If this video gets over 1,000 likes, we'll take a field trip an hour-and-a-half north to Estes Park, Colorado to stay a night at the Stanley Hotel, which is the hotel where Stephen King stayed and got the inspiration to write The Shining. The Stanley Hotel is considered one of the most haunted hotels in the world. Can you imagine how I would get ghosts and spirits to appear? And I'll make it quite interesting. See you next time.